Welcome to Doctor on Call with your host, DocGriffon. The doctor will be with you momentarily. Our guest this evening is YouTuber personality and commentator Blind Press. Warning: Doctor on Call can expose you to elements including wisdom and insight, which are known to cause severe bouts of entertainment. Currently, there is no evidence to support claims that this talk show may be sexually transmitted, but feel free to try it if you choose to. Doc Griffin, paging Doc Griffin, you're needed at the OR stat.
And thank you very much, Nurse Gaming Yelling. And tonight, I'd like to welcome everybody. And I think this is going to be an incredibly interesting show to have. A YouTuber that's around my size, but still puts out great content. Let's just jump right into it. And welcome. Welcome to the diagnosis room, Blind Press.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And it's going to be a pleasure. Now this is how I start out with all the shows, because if we're going to get a prognosis going on, we certainly have to know the symptoms, and that will start us right at the beginning. So, how did you grow up? Was it rural, urban, suburban?
Mostly I would say suburban. I was a city girl who got exposed to country life occasionally. So I got to the point where I felt that country was a nice place to visit, but I don't ever want to live there, I don't think.
Now, is it just because of the amenities between the two?
Probably. It's a little bit like, you've got your sidewalks in the city, and you've got transportation and public transit and all that good stuff.
I could see that. Now, did you have siblings?
I was an only child for a very long time. Till I was about 9. And then my mother ended up dating this guy who had a daughter already from a previous relationship, and then my mom and he ended up having a daughter when I was 12. So I eventually ended up having siblings.
So it's kind of growing up Brady then to start off.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it literally was, because not only did my mother date and get pregnant with somebody, my father remarried, and he and his wife adopted two children. So it really was kind of a Brady Bunch situation.
So would you say that it was basically a two-parent household, or did you ever set the two against each other for your advantage?
No, I was too young for that. They split when I was They split when I was very young. They tried to be together, but it was too much. There was too much arguing. They were very young. So it was basically a single parent household for my mom and I was with her for the primary, like she had primary custody of me. So it was single parent for about 9 years. And then single parent again after 5.
So now, did the relationship between your mom and your stepfather hold up until you got into your adult years?
No. He ended up cheating on her when and left when I was 13.
Oh my.
A year after his daughter was born.
Oof.
And we found out that he had basically been seeing the girl he left my mom for the whole time that he and my mom had been together, to the point where he had this mistress on his insurance instead of my mom. So my mom got a hospital bill for giving birth to his daughter.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh my. Now I will say that's I don't think that's necessarily an uncommon thing because unfortunately my dad did the same thing, um, setting up little families. But
Yeah.
as far as it goes, then you'd say it's more that you were raised single parent.
Yes.
Now, when you were young, what kind of things were you into? What grabbed your attention? What attracted you? What started your creativity, so to speak?
Um, I was always a very imaginative person. My mom was a student as well as being a single mom, so she was like a full-time university student.
Wow.
So I was left to my own devices quite often. And I didn't really ever watch like kids shows, so you know, I would, make up games and create characters out of, the books that I would listen to on tape, or, I learned Braille very young, so I was reading very young as well, both in Braille and in audiobook. And my dad exposed me to the game of chess when I was about 4 or 5. So I actually made up a life story for all the characters and stuff like that's the kind of shit I did. Like I would just make up imaginary friends and um play with play with them and make up different things for them to do and different different problems that would happen.
So
And that happened with me pretty much all through my childhood. It happened like I even did that with like the Evil Dead series and Ash Williams and stuff like that. Like I made up a whole side story about him, and it was crazy.
well, that's honestly, I would call that normal kid behavior. You know, like the little boys that sit down with a boatload of army men, or the little girls. And I'm going back in my day because I'm a boomer.
Yeah.
You know, they would sit down with their Barbie dolls and create the scenarios. You know, make their own stories. Um,
Yeah.
I guess we should broach this quickly because I think it will also be able uh, to cover some of the motivations and movements that you'd have in later life. Were you born without sight?
No, actually. I was born completely sighted. I was 6 months old, and a neighbor of my grandmother's actually brought her daughter over to visit, and neglected to inform um, anyone that her daughter was A, unvaccinated for the measles, and B, had been exposed to the
Oh,
measles. And you cannot get the MMR vaccine before 12 months of age. So I got the measles, and that ended up triggering a secondary viral infection. Um, big long name, cytomegalovirus,
wow.
which ended up attacking my eyes. I spent a month in a hospital for sick children while they tried to save my vision. They ended up taking out my right eye completely, and they took out the retina from my left eye. So I still have my real left eye, but it's covered by, basically, the best way to think about it is a very thick acrylic contact lens. And it's colored to match the prosthetic eye um, in my right eye.
So, as far as your sight goes, is it more of a dealing with light and like amorphous shapes, or can you fit?
Nope, there is nothing. Because I literally have plastic in my head instead of eyes.
Oh,
Um, it would be like, the best way to describe it would be like putting like burlap over your eyes and then having duct tape put over that, and also being told to squeeze your eyelids shut before the burlap had been placed.
mm.
So no light could get through, no shadow, no shape, outline, anything like that. That would be the best way to describe.
So you're technically at 100% then.
Yes.
Okay. Because I do want to move into other things about this, but yeah, I think foundationally it's good. I will admit, I'm just partially uncomfortable with broaching topics about disabilities, because most of my life I've always considered any of the disabilities I've had to be challenges. And we'll certainly get into that a little bit later, because you've got quite a few prideful moments too, which are worthy of celebrating. That without getting into the full story, that the disability that was given to you has not been able to slow or stop you to be able to lead a normal life.
Nope.
But I guess I'd like to ask too. Do you ever feel any bitterness about something that was thrust upon you at such an early age? Because at that age, memories don't even form at that point, I would think.
No. Honestly, I always say that if I had to lose my sight after birth, like if I had to be not born blind, this would be the best way to go blind, because you don't remember seeing. You don't remember you don't have to learn things all over again, basically. At this point, like, people ask me, would you like to see again? And I go, like, I think about it, and yeah, it would be really awesome to be able to actually see what my kids look like, to see what my husband looks like. But at the same time, I go, I would have to learn how to read all over again. I would learn how I would have to learn how to basically navigate again. I would have to learn everything all over again. And I'm like, that's a lot of work. I don't want to do that much work.
Yeah, I could see that. It's kind of like saying, hey, you can move to another country where there's kind of a decent job there waiting for you, but you'd have to relearn the culture, and you'd have to speak a completely different language. You can no longer speak the language that you speak. So, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Not to be punny in any way.
Oh God, I say that all the time. I see that.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. It was funny. I do have to tell behind the scenes. I was like, "Hey, would you like to see the ad card that's going to be for the show?" And I sent that, and I'm like, "Shit." That sounds. I thought that sounded pretty dickish. When I look back on it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, sure, send it over."
Well, I knew that I could. They have these apps that you can. They're specifically made for the blind, and you can either access a photo you've taken from your photo camera roll, or you can take a picture with the app itself, and it will describe to you what the picture is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I knew, like, I also know, like, how to share images and stuff as well. So I knew that if you sent it to me, I could at least share it with my Twitter followers and stuff, and see if I could get a few more people to come in and take a look at you and your channel.
Oh, well, I certainly appreciate that. I'll be honest with you. My whole goal with Doctor On Call is to save me from insanity. I've been housebound for about 5 years, and I just got it into my head that I want to have conversations with interesting people who do interesting things. And you are certainly on the radar for that.
That's kind of why I started my YouTube channel, was because as a blind person, you try and walk into a job interview and people are like, "Oh, Do you have any people in wheelchairs we could interview? Do you have any like deaf people, mentally handicapped, anyone except this blind person? Like it's really strange. So like I started this channel as a way of filling my time now that like my oldest son just started junior kindergarten this year, and my youngest son is taken over his brother's spot at daycare. So I was like, well, I have a lot to say and I love talking to people. And if they're like, if people want to, be kind enough and throw some, donations at a Streamlabs account, then I'm not just sitting on disability forever.
No.
Like, it's
and so to speak, if you haven't checked out Blind Press, her Twitter and YouTube, and of course there's a Patreon link down there as well. So those in the chat who haven't run into her yet, take the 20 seconds, hop over to her channel, at least give a sub and ring the bell. Not like that means anything anymore, but
yeah, no, right?
But now as you're growing up, did you have to go to a special school, or was there a school like a normal PS that would be able to cater to your needs?
I went to public school all the way through. My mother actually spoke to some blind people when it was time for me to go to school, and they met me, and like there were even a few blind people from the it's called the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. They're the big organization that assists blind people in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And they met me and they told Mom, don't send her there. Most schools for the blind tend to have students that have multiple disabilities.
Okay.
A lot of blind people tend to have other motor disabilities, or other mental disabilities as well. So the curriculum is basically as simplified as it can be without deviation from the certified curriculum of our province.
Mm-hmm.
And the most blind people who do not have multiple disabilities do not succeed well at that school. They get bored.
I have heard that specialty schools can actually be a handicap to those who aren't suffering from multiple things.
Well, there's a huge lawsuit going on with the one that I would have gone to for about half a century of abuse of the students. So I'm kind of glad I didn't go.
Yeah, I had a friend who was deaf, and I met her in junior high school. And she said, listen, I learned how to lip read because they had me for all of my elementary in a special school. And people, even if you're all deaf, they had a problem socializing with each other because it wasn't a norm. They were already basically playing on your disability. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very isolating. I call this school Planet Blind because when you go there, it is like when you park in that parking lot, it is like stepping off the earth and walking into a new planet. It's like, it's quiet. They don't let the resident, like, because there are people that live in residence there. Because they come from out of province And Ontario is a big place anyway, so if you don't live within 45-minute driving distance of this place, you're going to want to stay for the week at least.
Sure.
So they don't allow the older students very much freedom. Like, I think the basic allowance of travel outside the school is to the coffee shop at the corner.
It seems more like boot camp than an actual school.
Well, yeah, and they don't stop the what's called blindisms or stimming behavior that a lot of blind people do subconsciously. So if you've ever seen a blind person rocking, that's one of the things that blind people who have to go to school in a public school setting, like a normal setting, will either stop or they will get made fun of, right?
Sure.
Because you're doing weird things. But when you've got a bunch of blind people in the same place in a school, the staff just tends to figure, well, no one can see it happening, so there's no point.
Yeah, there's no incentive to curb a behavior that would basically socially ostracize you in the real world.
Yes.
I can see definitely where that happens. So you started from kindergarten up into just the regular PS?
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. I'm glad I didn't go. I'm very glad that my mom didn't send me. My stepmom tried to send me, actually. She tried to send me when I was 16. I do know why, but she tried to get me to go for the last 2 years of high school.
It sounds like it was more of a selfish thing.
It was. My mother and I were having issues, so I tried to live with my father, but my stepmother was crazier than my mother was.
She already had her safe little world set up and didn't want anybody encroaching.
She wanted me to go to the school for the blind during the week and come to my dad's on the weekend. And then she wanted my mother to pay my dad child support, even though I would be out of the house for most of the week.
Yeah. With or without sight, you can tell people who are being selfish.
Yeah.
And that's a heartbreaker too, because you would think that the father would step in and say,
Oh, he did. He said, leave her alone, because I did the tour to shut her up.
Yeah.
And for weeks afterwards, she was just, so are you gonna go? Are you gonna go? What do you think? That was a pretty cool tour, don't you think? And finally my dad stepped in and was like, you need to stop. She doesn't want to go. She's never wanted to go. She's been fine in public school. You need to stop.
So you're getting close to your graduation. What thoughts are in your head? What field do you want to enter into? Did you just want to go into higher learning, or did you just say, like, no, I just want to be part of the workforce?
I was having a really hard time. I started battling depression very badly. Pretty much starting around the age of 13, 12, 13. And by the time I had gotten to 16, I was pretty sure I wanted to do something with either music or languages.
Okay.
But I was having a really hard time. My grades were slipping because I was participating in class, but I just couldn't get my motivation up to do my assignments.
Okay.
even in classes I enjoyed. And I actually ended up dropping out of high
Oh
school.
my.
Because I was just at that point I was skipping more classes than I was attending, because I was just at the point where even the things that I loved, I just didn't care about
Now,
anymore.
do you mind if I ask where the distraction was coming from that led to the depression?
So what was going on was, part of it was environmental because my stepfather had left. That was my mother's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the problems with my dad and my stepmother, I had gotten very close to my stepfather, and I had started calling him dad.
Okay.
And so when he left, I was gutted, pretty much. And
So basically, your emotional anchor had left.
yeah.
Okay.
And then my mom, like, it was like watching my mom be that upset as well, was really hard. And then there was my 1-year-old sister who needed taking care of. So I kind of stepped up because mom fell to pieces pretty much. She made it clear, and because of the way that our house was built, there were no doors on our bedrooms. So I heard all of the conversations that she and my stepfather had before my sister had been conceived.
Oh.
Which was, I want to get married to you. This is his side. I want to marry you. I want to have a child with you. And her saying, I do not want to be stuck as a single parent of 2 children. You need to be damn sure that this is what you want.
Now, in your mind, were you convinced that that's what he wanted?
Yes.
Okay. So, unfortunately, that drove the wedge, which pushed him away.
Yeah. And so I ended up taking care of, like, my mom was just going through the motions, basically. I got to go to work and make sure the bills are paid and stuff, but that's about it, right?
Even cited, that's a tough responsibility to take care of a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're a
she's
kid
got,
taking care of a kid.
yeah, well, and she's got, and she was feeling, I could tell she was feeling awful about, because she basically knew that I was, we both said that I was my sister's second mom.
Yeah.
Because I stepped up. Like, I was, I was there, and there were times where, because of the way that my mother's work policy, her job's policy was, I had to miss school sometimes to take care of my sister when she was sick. Because they told her, my mom's job had told her, if you miss any more work, you're fired. And so, yeah.
I definitely understand that. By the way, we're at the bottom of the hour right now.
Okay.
And if you have any questions for Blind Press, we're going to be doing the QA at the top of the hour. So please feel free and get those questions ready. Don't put them in yet because I'll probably miss them in the scroll. But when we get to the top of the hour, please feel free and start dropping them in. And we will answer your questions for Blind Press. Now, I don't know if this is too sensitive to go into, and we can skip if you choose. But when your little sister got to the age of reasoning, how did you explain your disability to her?
It was, she just kind of grew up with it, so it didn't. It was just always the fact that her sister's eyes didn't work. That's just how I said it when she was little. My eyes are broken.
Okay.
And that's actually what I say to my kids too, because they're 4 and almost 2. So the 4-year-old now, I'm starting to tell him, Mommy can't see, her eyes are broken. Um, and he'll ask me, "You need to go to the doctor. They'll fix them." And I'll say, "No, honey, they can't fix them."
Is that in any way heartbreaking or reassuring that you have a child that wants you to be, I don't want to say societally norm, but basically like all the other people that she sees around her?
It doesn't make me sad. It makes me happy that he understands that, like, that he's smart enough to know that generally when things with your body are broken, you go to the doctor. And he's smart enough to know that, like, he already knows. um I'll say, for example, "Honey, where's the remote?" He'll go, "Right here in my hand." And, like, he knows that's what he just has to do. He Because he's grown up with it. And that's what my sister was. It was the same way. She just grew up with, she knew that her sister felt like when her sister said, "Let me see," and held out her hand, that meant put whatever it was in her hand.
Okay. Yeah, instead of the grunting descriptors that we've been given, it's actually a descriptor.
Yeah.
Now, so, how long were you under the weight of the depression? When did
I still suffer.
Okay.
Now, I said that part of it was environmental. The
Mhm.
other part of it, a lot of blind people actually suffer from depression and insomnia, which I do. And this is because the circadian rhythm is off, and that is the biorhythmic clock in your brain that is linked to the rising and setting of the sun.
Yeah.
That releases the chemicals in your brain, the natural melatonin
That's
in your brain that tells you to go to sleep.
that's something that I had never thought of.
So a lot of blind people will suffer from insomnia because of that, and depression because of a severe lack of vitamin D, and again, a chemical imbalance in the brain, like a lack of serotonin. So that's the other piece of it. So I still suffer pretty badly with depression and anxiety, and that's the other reason I do the YouTube channel, is so that I'm not alone with my thoughts all day. I can sit there, and even though that it's, reading chat and interacting with chat and stuff like that, I'm speaking out loud to someone other than myself. And it's very therapeutic.
Yeah. Speaking as a person who's been housebound for as long as I have, I can see YouTube, or any other streaming type thing where you can be interactive, as a definite benefit. Now, you had mentioned previously, that you're under that you're under disability, but what were you, once the veil kind of lifted a bit for you with depression? Did you think, well, I got to go get a job? What do I want to do?
So what I did was, I actually did have one job, and I had tried to apply for a few after that. Now the job I did have was, my mother had since gotten a different job than the one that had threatened to fire her for looking after her child. Gotcha. And it was a public health agency type job, and she basically ham-handed me into a job interview with a smoking cessation movement for youth, because I had started smoking cigarettes, Um, and she was very upset about that.
Oh.
And she thought that it would open my eyes to some of the things about smoking because, you know, I guess she thought I didn't know it was bad for me. I don't know. Or she thought the people would pressure me into quitting,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose. But the way that it ended up working out was it was a bunch of teenagers hired to come up with ways to tackle the problem of teenage smoking. And they came up with, you know, we should get stores to put the cigarettes in behind the counters, you know, with, you know, like in cupboards behind the counters instead of being visible. Or one of their ideas was we should tell the bus drivers that they can't smoke on the bus platforms at the bus station. And I'm like, that's not going to work. You can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you expect bus drivers to drive us around all day, let them smoke right by their buses, for crying out loud. Come on. Especially in the winter. Like, just, but so this was all busy work, basically, for teenagers. For non-smoking teenagers to make themselves feel better than the teenagers that smoked. And it was do posters and, you know, things of that nature that we can put up around the city to, you know, advertise the smoking cessation programs that we offer. And, you know, they would all, I would be like, okay, well, being blind, I can't do any of the pictographic things for your posters, but I would be happy to type out any text that you need put on the posters. And they'd be like, no, we've got it. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want me to do then? Just sit here? And eventually, the supervisor calls me in and says, well, everyone's getting really upset because you're not pulling your weight. And I'm like, okay, well, when we have our team meetings, I'm very vocal and I speak up and I participate. But when it comes to the, you know, the legwork and stuff, a lot of it's visual, and any of the stuff that I can do, that I offer to do, nobody lets me do. They all say, no, we don't want you to do that. And she said, well, we don't think you're a good fit here. So you need to either quit or I'm going to fire you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, guess what? I quit. Yeah, I'm not giving you the satisfaction.
Yeah. Now, let me ask: Were you? And it doesn't sound like it, so I'm asking an obvious question. It doesn't sound like you were aligned with what their goals were.
Oh, I said I said if you don't want to smoke anymore, then you should absolutely be given help smoking. I told them, I said, your goals are laudable. I said, I think the way you're going about your goals is very nagging,
Yeah,
and shaming, and people aren't going to respond to that. Like, that's what I was trying to tell them. I wasn't trying to say don't help teenagers stop smoking, and I wasn't trying to say don't prevent teenagers from smoking. Do you know what I mean?
It's you were doing it all wrong.
I was trying to say, listen, you guys are being really, really higher than thou. You're saying that those people who chose to smoke, or, you know, somehow got started smoking and may regret the decision, you're treating them like they're stupid. You're treating them like they just don't know any better. And people aren't going to respond to that.
Yeah.
And they took that as, you know.
Well, it's like down here in the States when they originally started their initial stop smoking programs. they had, you know, the animated cigarette, and the
Mm-hmm.
tagline on it was "Don't be a butthead." And
Yeah. Like, that's not gonna
yeah,
work.
people who smoked just laughed at it and lit another cigarette.
Yeah.
So essentially, you disagreed with not the means of, or you disagreed with the means of what was going on, but not the goal.
No, yeah, exactly. I disagreed with the operation.
Yeah. So, and I know this can be crushing, because you know, I, once again, not to parallel, because mine is definitely less severe than what you've got going on, is the fact that I couldn't get anybody to hire me because I had a limited amount of work time. There was
Right.
not a lot I could do. I could see where that could spiral to depression, but was it YouTube that helped you out of it, or what was that? What was that bright glimmering moment where you were able to at least, you know, push the veil back a little bit from depression?
Um, it's I'm still honestly I'm dancing with the veil. That's the best way to put it. Sometimes the veil comes back and pulls itself across. Other times I, tear it off and throw it on the floor. And then I, feel better, and then I can, there's some sort of house elf that works for the veil that hangs it back up.
Well,
um,
I would kind of think, I guess an easier analogy would be you're on a hot summer day, and there's that nice cool wind that comes by. Was there something or someone that was that cool wind for you?
um, well, I would say my husband Pincalo and I we've been together for 12 years. I met him at 17.
Okay, and if I may ask, he's sighted? Okay.
Yes. Um, and we've been together for 12 years. And our relationship has by no means been, a breeze, but we have done so much good for each other. We call each other out when we're acting like ridiculous people. We, you know, but we also are there for each other when things are bad. Like, and he's definitely um been someone that's been incredibly helpful and stabilizing, and my kids too. Like, when I got pregnant with Alex, my oldest, um it's I still, even though I still suffer with the depression, my kids are awesome. They always, there's always something they do that make me laugh.
Well, and honestly,
Um
you just described a normal relationship. I mean, what every relationship should be, because they're roller coasters.
yeah,
There's always ups,
they are.
there's always downs. Being able to find that someone, and I'm not going to use the Jerry Maguire thing, the "you complete me" deal,
Yeah.
but yeah, a good partner always picks up when you drop off, and
Mm.
yeah, I can definitely see that. I can also definitely see being able to revel in the wonderment of children. How that would help to be a pickup. Now, yeah, I know children can be a pain in the butt. I helped raise 4, but I mean, would you agree that the good outweighs the bad?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And So now you get to a point, and I know I have this feeling even today, which drives my depression, which is my personally perceived lack of uselessness to my partner.
Mm.
Do you have any tricks that you try to get over any of that, or it's just I just gotta suck it up and weather it?
I have. Oh, what's wrong, Alex? What's wrong?
Mommy,
Why are you running from Daddy?
I want to from my dad.
Well, why are you? Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, he is.
I'm not.
So I what I try to do is, and it's really hard because I still have I have a lot of trouble dealing with just daily motivation to do
Honey?
stuff. And it,
Wake me up, Mom.
honey, you need to go back upstairs.
No, not.
No, you don't?
Sit on a lap.
Okay, but you need to be quiet, honey. So I have, what I try to do is, because it's really hard, because Pincalo's the only one that drives, obviously.
Mommy.
So when, it's hard, you end up feeling bad because don't touch anything.
That's cool.
No.
But Mommy, this is bumming me down.
So what happens is
Tell me, Mom.
you have, stop touching things. You have, you feel bad because you're the cause of, extra stress,
Yeah.
right? And just despite, the nicest partner, you're going to stress them out if they're the only one that can get around and drive. And they have to go to the grocery store like 3, 4, 5 times a week. Or, it's stressful.
Oh yeah.
And it feels, you feel kind of bad. You feel bad about it. And, I try really hard to work on, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to work better with doing more housework and stuff because I stayed home all day.
Yeah.
Right. And he works. And he's right here.
Come on, let's go.
Go with Daddy. Give me a hug. You give me a
Bye,
hug.
Alex.
Say goodbye to chat.
Say bye, chat. Yes.
So it's no, you go with Daddy. I love you. The one time he gets to spend time with Daddy and he doesn't want to. So it's what I'm trying to do right now is do better at my chore stuff and make things less stressful at home.
Yeah.
Because I've been getting really, my depression got so bad. My house was a wreck. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. It looked like shit. And that's not helpful for a working person either, to come home and you're gonna be like, oh, my house. Why is my house like that?
You are preaching to the choir. I literally cannot drive anymore, and I have the energy to do maybe a sink full of dishes per day because it's a walking up and down the steps thing, and I would think, and correct me more if I'm wrong, it's the frustration that drives the depression.
I think so.
Because, you've got somebody who's loving on you and in love with you, and you want to do the best that you can for them and be supportive. And sometimes there are physical limitations that'll stop you.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you are raising some very well-adjusted children. I mean,
Well, thank
Alex
you.
sounds happy.
Oh, he's a very happy boy. And he's got just as good of an imagination as I did. So,
Yeah. Now, as far as once again, this is just a supposition on my part. I would think that the only thing that stops you as far as being creative is to be able to lay down specifically colors or things that, well, what are a few things that are kind of tripping points for you as far as being descriptive without being cited?
Honestly, not much. Especially for writing. I was working on a book for a long time that I really should finish. I always keep saying that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I am a writer, and I will get on your ass if you ever try to hand me something that's not finished.
Yeah.
That's the one big pitfall. Even if it turns out to be utter crap in your opinion, at least you finished it, and then you can actually hand it over to somebody for a critique. So just finish it. That's all you got to do. What's your sticking point on it?
I'm afraid I'm gonna get lost in it. Because it ties into my mental health a little bit.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a dissociation thing that I ended up developing when I was younger and very, very depressed. And I was trying to deal with it, and I didn't understand.
Well, things that I wrote.
So I'm afraid of getting lost into it. So that's, I think, why I don't finish it.
I was going to say things that I wrote as a teenager. My perspective definitely did change, especially in my late 20s and early 30s. That's just part of the growing process. If you can make it to something that adapts to what your point of view is now, it shouldn't be as detrimental to you.
That's true.
Because that
there are some it is a story that could be written without getting lost.
Well, it's kind of like when you're going back through like old papers that you may have kept from, like high school or junior high school. You remember the nostalgia, and the nostalgia is a part of you, but it doesn't become you because that was already you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you need to, walk away from it and just write something else. Do like a writing exercise. And I will admit, there's one story that I started writing, got about 2 or 3 pages into, and I walked away from it for about 4 years. And I had a different perspective when I came back to it. I looked at it and go, oh, okay, well, isn't that cute? And then I actually finished the story, and it ended completely differently than what I had started off with. So maybe it's just time and perspective. Never just crumple it up and throw it away, because that might be inspiration for you later on.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, look at me.
I found a book review that I had written and not handed in for my world religions class once, and I was so mad at myself because it was actually really good.
Yeah, and if you're taking writing seriously, yeah, you will kick yourself for the things that you don't have anymore. Because if nothing else, like if you write a story and it's really, really bad, but there's like one kernel of it that sounds pretty good, you can certainly steal that element because you're just taking it from yourself and write the story that you want to do. So nothing's ever garbage, but if it's unhealthy for you at that point, then yeah, certainly put it away, work on something else. But wait a minute, this is about you, isn't about me. Now we're coming up to the top of the hour, so if you would please, ladies and gentlemen, any questions that you have for Blind Press, please go ahead, set them up in the chat, and we will read them off and answer questions. In the meantime, if you're unfamiliar with Blind Press, her links are down in the descriptor. Not only her Twitter, but of course the YouTube and her Patreon. And one thing that I additionally want to point out, yeah, you guys know my links are down there. They're always down there. But there's also the prescription for additional entertainment. And those are other YouTubers that I like, which may not have very many views, not very many subs, but I still don't find them any less entertaining. So if you ever tune into this, either live or post, please feel free. Click on some of those links. Check out these people. See if you like them. If you don't, you get your money back. But since it's free, then yeah, deal with it. Let me take a look here. And yeah, I tell you what. Before we get into the Q&A, let me just ask. Now, you have cited some reasons for you getting into YouTube, but how did you decide on your format?
Pardon?
How did you decide on your format?
So,
and you might want to explain what you're actually doing on the YouTubes for those who don't know.
So what I do is every day, I do a stream. I started out doing some videos that Pink Hollow helped me edit, like short rant videos, and I do plan to do more of those. We're just having we just need a new computer first for editing, and the computer is going to collapse. That's a different story. But what I do now, I started in September when my kids went to school full time, is I do something called the coffee stream every day for 2 hours at noon. Well, it recently started at noon. I was doing it at 10. And I read news that either I find or my viewers send me, either by the hashtag Blind Press Reads, or I do have a Discord that some of my my longer term subs are a part of, and they send me news there as well. And I have my screen reader read the articles and I react to them. And I also interact with chat. I read the chat's reactions to the articles. Sometimes I go looking specifically for articles about blind or just disabled people in general. And I do also, on Saturdays, I do a Star Trek stream where I talk everything Star Trek with 3 other people. And that's a huge fun time. And Pink Hollow and I do a stream together on Sunday nights where he reads the news that he picks. Like, he picks news and doesn't tell me because he likes to see my reactions to the articles that he picks. And he also reads, he does voices, like he does impressions and stuff like that. And that stream's called The Blind and the Special.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. When I was in the chat, I got irritated at Pink Hollow because he kept asking about any Star Trek characters that had been demoted, and I was just like, yeah, I was like Kirk. I kept putting Kirk in the chat.
Yeah.
And he gave me.
Oh, I don't think that was Pink Hollow. I think that was Polydub.
Was it? Because he was giving me no love. I'm telling you. I'm like, I know my Trek. Well, I'm an old guy. I know old Trek. So.
Old Trek, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were into the Voyager one, and I'm like, yeah, I'm lost. I watched the end episode, and that was pretty much it. Because I just wanted to see how they wrapped everything up. And I did.
Gotcha.
Do you like Enterprise?
I at first, when it very first came out, I was livid. I'm rewatching it now for the streams, and it's not as anger inducing as I thought it was. It's not the best series by far. But it's not anywhere as bad as I thought it was when I was younger.
What's your
the introductory song is terrible though.
And that I will agree. It's like in the movie Transformers when they kept playing the song "You Got the Power." It's like just no, stop. You need something that's anthemic, that's that's Star Trek based, because they always had these bold anthems. I gotta ask, since we're on it, what's your opinion of STD?
It's an STD. It's I saw the premiere 2-parter with Pinkalo, and the Klingons were carrying their dead with them, and we said, why? That's not what they do. What the fuck are you doing? And then we saw that Spock had a sister all of a sudden. And we went, okay, no.
Hey, as long as it's 25% different. Good God. So let's jump into a couple of these from the chat, shall we? Now this is one I thought about asking, but I figured one of the chat would probably bring it in. Ortiz805 asks, how are you able to see the chat? I'm so terribly curious.
So what I do, and this is what I do when I'm streaming in general, whether it be on my channel or with somebody else, I've got my phone beside me, which also has a screen reader. I have Apple products. So right now I'm on my computer on the Hangout with you, and I have the YouTube chat on my phone open, and I am swiping. So the gesture that I would use to read things is I would swipe right or left. Right to move forward, left to move backward. And it will speak everything on the screen to me, except images. It does have trouble with images. That's why you have those apps that I mentioned earlier. And so yeah, it speaks chat to me.
But they're able, the program that you have is able to read emojis?
Yes, it is.
Now, I did a little bit of research on it, and because I worked with somebody at a call center who was blind, and they had a Braille reader with them. The one where you put your fingertips over, and it basically pops up the little, I don't know what they're called, like pins?
It's called a refreshable Braille display. And the dots will pop up. Those are, I want one. They're very expensive. The thing that they vary from like $1,500 to $5,000.
Well, this one was actually supplied by the company that I worked for.
Yeah, sometimes they will do that. Companies sometimes will provide. You guys in the States are a lot better for that because you have more organizations for the blind that have established. The States has a lot of specific organizations that blind people work for, or like companies that will be, I guess, linked with those organizations for the blind and will hire them basically because they've been affiliated. And there's a lot more employability for the blind in the States than there is up
because
here.
Honestly, I don't see why blind people cannot work a call center as long as the right equipment is there.
We absolutely can.
I was hired and worked a long time with a Fortune 250 company, so they were looking into that, and that's how the Braille reader came up. They found out that legitimately it was something that would be positive for them as a diversity hire, but also they could write off the Braille reader at the end of the tax season. So it was a win-win for them. And I trained this girl. It was a little bit daunting for me because I couldn't say, just look up at the screen right here. I would have to go, okay, just tab down and I'll tell you when to stop. And so, she tabbed down. I was like, okay, read this. And she picked it up pretty well. Honestly, I didn't see anything after she came out of training. So I don't know what happened to her, but I mean, she was doing as competent, if not better job than all the other people that I was training.
Yeah.
So yeah, that type of availability. Do you think if that's something that would be offered to you at a job, that you would want to go back into the regular employment stream?
Yeah. It's what I would like to do, honestly, is like probably it would be fun to honestly go and learn how to it's called be an independent living skills instructor, which they go and they work with blind people and they teach them how to cook, how to clean, like how to live independently.
Yeah, basically taking somebody who's an example of living a normal life and teaching them how to do the same.
Yeah.
No, that's certainly admirable. And, it's hard, like I was mentioning, trying to teach a non-sighted person how to do this job, but there was always the will there to do it. You think that helps them achieve some normalcy and maybe also help to lift that depression that you were talking about?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Irate Prostate asks, what is your favorite Rush song?
I hate Rush. I know I'm a terrible Canadian.
Hey, that's okay. I'll be honest with you. I saw them play live. They sounded exactly like they sounded on the record. And that just...
Buddy sounds like a chick.
Well, yeah.
Every time I hear Rush singing, every time I hear the guy from Rush singing, I have to think for a second, who is that chick? Oh, that's Rush.
Yeah, I was disappointed with the fact that I was like, well, there's no vamping or improving or like guitar solos or drum solos or anything. It was like they stuck to the music and played it, and I was like, well, hell, I could have not spent the $12 on the ticket and just stayed home and listened to 2112.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my only dispute with them. And okay, kind of an off question, but Turish asks, wait, did I hear Mortal Kombat? And yes, you did.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your gaming?
I play fighting games. Sometimes I do those streams as well. Like I did on Sunday night because the computer crashed. So I did a gaming stream instead. And I only play fighting games. Sorry, you guys. That's my youngest running around upstairs, that thumping me here.
Well, they should hear the meowing of my cat that's trying to bug the piss out of me, so.
So I play fighting games because the sound is very pronounced.
Okay.
So it's easier to play. And so I play games like Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, Tekken, stuff like that.
Do you ever do any retro gaming?
We used to play on the Dreamcast. I had I had Soul Calibur, the original game in Japanese. And then I had Ready to Rumble round 2. And it would be cool to get my hands on an original PlayStation so I could play like Bushido Blade and stuff like that.
You mean like no Double Dragon or Street Fighter?
I suck at 2D games. I can't do 2D games. 2D fighting games, I am terrible at.
Yeah, no.
It's funny.
Now I'm ignorant because I thought that most all of the fighting games were 2D games.
Yeah.
So, can you help me out with that? What's the difference between a 2D and a 3D fighting game?
So, a 2D fighting game, you can only move 2 directions, and it's a lot more limited. Now, Mortal Kombat is technically it's you can't really go like Soul Calibur. You go 8 ways, like you can run 8 ways. Mortal Kombat, you can't really do it that much, but you can move back and forth, and you can jump. So it's easier to move around. I play Mortal Kombat with headphones because the sound of the characters goes from left to the right and left of the speakers. So it's easier to hear my character versus the other character and the footsteps, because if I can hear the footsteps, then I can get ready to block or attack. So it's stuff that's sort of what I do and how I play.
Gotcha. Now, they are saying in the chat that Bushido Blade is the best.
Bushido Blade was awesome. I could never get past the sewer though, because you can't kill dishonorably in Bushido Blade, and I always, because of not being able to see, I would always end up stabbing someone in the back, and that's not very honorable. So I could never get past the sewer. Like I got to the tower once and got my ass shot within 5 seconds. And yeah, the people who have played Bushido Blade will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I gave up on combat games after Mortal Kombat 2. So yeah, when I ran out of quarters or tokens, that was pretty much the end of my gaming. Although I will say that one game that I want to play right now is the new Toe Jam and Earl.
I've never heard of that.
It was an old Sega game, and they just basically tweaked it. It's a questing game. You go on different maps, and you try to find pieces of a spaceship to get back home. And it's real easy for small-brained gamers like myself. So I'm completely okay with that. Now, I do. There's really no other way to ask this, but when you were pregnant, did you ever have that moment of doubt or fear that what would you do if your child was born with a disability?
No. Because there were no other hereditary disabilities in my family, and the blindness was not hereditary. And the only thing I was worried about was the actual giving birth part, because I had so much practice with my sister, and then my father and his wife had been foster parents with intent to adopt. So they had done foster parenting for about 4 years before they adopted, or 3 years before they adopted their children. So I was around a lot of babies. So I was not worried about the taking care of the baby part. as a blind person, I was worried about the giving birth part as a, will I be able to take the pain?
Yeah. Well, that's why they invented epidurals.
Yep.
At
Thank
least
God.
that's what I've been told, for I have not had one before. No, Jolly Rogers, I'm not going to ask that. He said, since blind folks are superhuman, ask her how many fingers I'm holding up.
All of them.
And I'm holding up one finger for Jolly Roger.
The middle one.
But yes, yes, we do have some sarcastic people who live in my chat. But that's quite all right. Now, I tell you what was the one story that Pinkello came up with that just really kind of set you off your pins? The one that really messed with you. And it could be in a good or in a bad way, kind of like, oh, this is revolting, or, well, where did you dig this silly shit up from?
He, wow, he finds a lot. He finds a lot of Florida man stuff. Like the Florida, the two mayors in Port Richey. Oh no, there was the story that had me crying. I was laughing so hard. Was somebody slapped their girlfriend with a bowl of chili.
Okay.
And this was in the same county as someone who had been arrested twice for hitting his girlfriend first with tacos and then with a burrito.
What?
So by this point, I'm just picturing, like, I literally, when he read me that story, all I could picture was, that Dave Chappelle skit, what did the five fingers say to the face? And except with a bowl of chili. Like, and I had tears pouring down my face. I was laughing so hard. It was too funny.
That's yeah. That made me instantly think of food fighting.
Yeah.
People can be strange. I'm just glad. Apparently, a T-bone steak wasn't on their menu. Somebody could have really gotten hurt.
Yeah.
And let me just go ahead, since we're at the bottom of the hour. Once again, if you are unfamiliar with my guest, Blind Press's links are down in the description. The Twitter, the YouTube, and of course the Patreon. And if you have not subbed, then just take 20 seconds. Jump over there. You guys all have wrenches. Just jump over there. Go ahead and leave a sub. Ring that bell. And see for yourself. Check it out. Because, yeah, you should if you're interested and if you're curious. We all need a little bit better as far as what's going on currently around the neighborhood, instead of people performing their IBS duties, which are lame and dragged out, or just basically over talking politics, because who cares what anybody else's opinion is at this point.
Oh, can I answer one more question in chat?
Yes.
So, Mad Metal Man said, DocGriffon, what is Blind Press's favorite music, and if she feels like answering, why? Or favorite and least favorite music.
I was getting ready to read that, and you overread me in the chat. Shame on you.
Sorry.
No, it's a great question.
And so my least favorite music has to be today's pop / R&B / rap. It's fucking terrible. Fuck auto-tune.
Oh. So wait a minute. You do, though. Do you like Uptown Funk?
No. I am a rock and metal person. And the reason that I like that is it's speaks to me. I like the older stuff. Now I do like new metal, like Disturbed. I would Rammstein, stuff like that. Old Marilyn Manson from the
Yeah, because
90s.
fat tubby Marilyn Manson just doesn't go over
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, no. Old Rage Against the Machine, but that I'll go for the Chili Peppers or AC/DC or again older GNR or what else? Beastie Boys, stuff like that. But I'm not ashamed to say that I do enjoy Nickelback. Say what you will, I enjoy Nickelback.
That just might be a Canadian birth defect, but we'll excuse it.
Well, there are a lot of Canadians that actually don't like Nickelback. There are actually more Americans that like Nickelback. They do more tours in America and Europe than they do here.
Well, I can't say that I hated them when they came out, but I think the one thing that people really dislike about them is their influence, because Chad Kroeger started producing a lot of bands. So yes, everything he was producing sounded like a Nickelback song, and he was actually giving songs to some of these bands. So
yeah, he was.
So yeah, he was kind of
Theory of a Dead Man. The older Theory of a Dead Man was a good example, but Tyler Cully, again, he's got a set of balls, because first of all, he walked straight up to Chad and handed him a tape and said, "Here, listen to this." And then he branched off, and Theory of a Dead Man's got a much different sound now than it did.
Yeah.
Before Chad was when Chad was influencing
them. Do you know Magog?
Oh. I do. Well, I don't know Magog.
You know of him,
but I know of him. I would love to know Magog. That would be fucking wicked.
Not to be self-promotional, but you should show up on show up for an IRS some night. He has a tendency to drop by like once a week, and then you can always jump on. But his favorite song right now, the one that he keeps talking about over and over again, is Theory of a Dead Man's "Blow." The one that's like the chorus is like, "Sometimes I want to blow my fucking head off."
Yep.
That one, yeah, that's the one that's always running through his brain currently. Yeah, I like Theory of a Dead Man. I saw Theory of a Dead Man when they were first touring. I even have a Theory of a Dead Man shirt. It was inexpensive. I even have a pic from them, I think. I don't know if they thought I was a chick and was throwing it to me or not, but I got one. Yeah. So okay, let's rev up the time machine. You have the availability to go visit and see any band play. Who would that band be?
Do I get to stay the same age as I am now?
Yes, you do not have to age.
Hendrix.
Really?
I want to go smoke a big fat fucking joint with Hendrix, and I want to hear him play guitar, and yeah.
You know what's kind of odd about Jimi Hendrix? He only did like one album before he died, technically. Yeah. And he has more bootlegs out than any other artist, because he played everywhere. I mean, he didn't get any type of affection until he went to England, and he used to play in some of the worst shitholes in England to get noticed, and he did. And yeah, we're lucky to have him. He is an awesome guitarist that hopefully nobody's going to be forgotten about it. Okay, let me catch up here. Turish is asking, Do you play Soul Calibur 6?
I do.
If so, who's your main character?
Taki.
Okay. And what is your opinion of the reversal edge mechanic?
I think it's fun.
I don't know what the hell that means. I'll be honest.
So it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors in a fighting game.
Okay.
And you basically, when your opponent activates it, you push a button and hope that you either block or defend the attack somehow. And if they block or defend your defense, like it's literally combat rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, okay.
And it's really, I like it. Some people think it's stupid. Some people really hate it, but I think it's really fun.
It sounds like it's better than rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock.
That was back when Big Bang Theory was good.
Yes. Jolly Rogers Bilgewater just said, whoever would have guessed she'd have good taste in music? Hey. Jolly. You know, people...
Oh my goodness, my children are screaming, "Mommy, mommy."
Are you of a need in the home?
I may be, yes.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, I may be in
Let's
need.
see if we can burn these out really quick.
I just got asked, how much longer?
Okay. We only have a couple more. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and power through this real quick. Who's your favorite band right now?
I'm really digging the Disturbed still, the new album. Well, the newest album, Immortalized, was brilliant.
Have you seen them in concert yet? Oh,
not yet.
You'll love them. They are awesome. They are powerful in concert. And which do you find to be the most overhyped band?
Ooh, that's a hard one. There are so many.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely pass through any genre, but I mean, if you're going with I guess rock or metal.
Geez, what would be the most overrated band?
Oof.
I can't pick one, honestly.
Somebody asked, wonder what mushrooms would be like for the blind. Guys, as a person who wrote a book about hallucinogens, there would definitely be some auditory things that would happen.
If I had more time, I would tell you. But I don't. I'm really sorry.
No,
my children are very, very upset, and I need to wrap it up.
Well, then, yeah, let's go ahead and get this wrapped for you. I would like to thank Blind Press for stopping by this evening. Now, of course, the links are down below. Her Twitter, the YouTube, if you feel so inclined, her Patreon. Of course, my Twitter's down there, my Streamlabs. So if you want to throw a couple ducats my way, certainly would appreciate it. I do also have a Patreon, which is definitely my booze buying money. So you know where your you know where your change is going. Also, I've got a TeePublic store, which not only has the finest in bootleg Mr. Medicare merchandise, but also we're now featuring the Insomnia Ramble Stream merchandise as well. And please don't forget that for the prescription for additional entertainment, check out those couple dozen people that are down there. Give them a listen, give them a watch, and see if you don't agree that they are worth a like and a sub. And I would just like to say that I like to thank most of my chat for coming out this evening. And be with us next week when we sit down and we're going to have a conversation about, well, the birds and the bees. Well, okay, I lied. It's going to be mostly about the bees when we welcome Buzz of the Hive to the show.
Nice.
And once again, thank you very much for being part of the show, Blind Press. Thanks to everybody for coming out and listening for this evening. And be with us next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. And this is Doc Griffin saying the doctor's office is closed. Good night.
Night, guys.